Hi there, I'm Dr. B, and welcome to the Social Skills Deficits module. Some people like to take notes as we go through the training, so if that's you, I encourage you to press pause on the video and take a moment to go print out the handouts that go along with this part of the training. This module is going to flow just like the other ones do. First, I'm going to talk about the psychological problem or the risk that we're seeing. Then I'll talk about the reason for the problem. And then finally, we'll talk about what to do about it. So with that being said, let's get started. First, I'm going to review some information about the problem of social skills deficits that we're seeing in our kids. I'm not going to drown you in research statistics, but I am going to give you a good context of the problem before we move on to the reasons it's a problem and then what to do about it. So the new reality is that most teens' social lives are being conducted online for all to see with clear messages about who's in and who's out. Kids today spend less time at parties than any previous generation, and not only are they spending less time at parties, but the number of teens who get together with friends every day has been cut in half in the past 15 years, with especially steep declines recently. And though kids are spending less time in person together, they still crave this in-person interaction. Nearly all 18 and 19-year-olds in a college freshman survey said that they would much rather see their friends in person than communicate with them electronically. This timing of this recent severe drop in going out and getting together with friends is suspicious because it occurred right around the same time that smartphones became popular and social media use really took off. Rites of passage are falling to the wayside. Fewer teens meet to hang out, go on dates, drive around in a car just for fun, go to the movies, or go to parties. They're less likely to take part in every single face-to-face social activity measured across 4 data sets and 3 different age groups. These fading interactions include everything from small group or one-on-one activities such as getting together with friends to larger group activities such as parties. And you may be thinking, okay, well, if teens aren't going out as much, then that must mean that they're spending more time with their families. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case either. Teens are spending more leisure time alone. They're Instagramming, Snapchatting, and texting with their friends more and seeing them in person less. For many teens, online friendships have replaced offline friendships. And much of social competence is learning how to read subtle cues in body language and facial expressions. And studies show that face-to-face contact is highly correlated with social well-being, while media use and media multitasking is correlated with the opposite. Young people with screen-related social anxiety tend to make poor eye contact and seem distracted or not present. They may take long pauses before answering questions and be unable to resonate with or really mirror another person's emotions. A study examining empathy score trends of college students from 1979 through 2009 found a particularly sharp drop after the year 2000. The same stress reactions that affect mood and cognitive symptoms also impact social relationships. Extreme shyness, poor sportsmanship, limited empathy skills, and reduced tolerance for intimacy are all made worse when face-to-screen interactions replace face-to-face interactions. Devices are taking our attention from real connections. Studies have found that even the mere presence of a cell phone inhibits the development of interpersonal closeness and trust and decrease the extent to which individuals felt empathy and understanding from their partners. Since 2007, homicide rates amongst teens has declined, but suicide has increased. This is a shocking finding that further illustrates the move away from in-person activities and towards more solo online interactions. The steady decline in teen homicide from 2007 to 2014 looks very similar to the decline in in-person social interaction. 46% more teens committed suicide in 2015 than in 2007. This rise occurred just as new media started to increase and in-person social activity decreased. With teens spending more time on their phones and less time with friends, they're more likely to become depressed, which could ultimately lead to suicide. And when you consider this decrease in homicide, well, teens have to be together in order to inflict physical harm. But unfortunately, they can inflict psychological harm right through their phones. So you might be thinking, well, okay, that's a little extreme, or really what's the big deal? Okay, so teens aren't spending as much time together in person, but they're connected constantly. They're interacting with their peers and their friends all the time through their devices. So, they're still being social. Well, the big deal really is their mental health. Teens who spend more time on screen activities are more likely to be unhappy, and those who spend more time on non-screen activities are more likely to be happy. There's not a single exception. 8th graders who spend 10 or more hours per week on social media are 56% more likely to be unhappy than those who don't. And those who spend 6 hours per week on social media are 47% more likely to say that they're unhappy. Those who spend more time with their friends in person are 20% less likely to be unhappy, and teens who spend more time on non-screen activities are less likely to be depressed. 8th grade heavy users of social media increase their risk of depression by 27%. So if you were to give advice on how to live a happier life, a simple thing would be to put down the phone and basically do anything else that doesn't involve a screen. So now that I've shared a little more context around the problem, let's explore the reasons that we're seeing this problem in our kids. Okay, so I'm going to review the following 3 reasons for the social skills deficits that we're seeing in our kids. 1 is decrease in-person interaction, 2 is the vicious cycle, and 3 is missing opportunities to develop social skills. So kids are seeing their friends in person an hour less a day than previous generations, which means that's an hour less per day spent building social skills, negotiating relationships, and navigating emotions. And it doesn't seem that this hour has been replaced with productive activities like homework or volunteer work, but rather it's been replaced with screen time. This decrease in in-person interaction is fundamentally changing the lives of our teens. Preliminary evidence is showing that this decline in in-person interaction is leading to inferior social skills. In a study that had one group of 6th graders spend 5 days at an overnight camp without any electronics, and another group spend the same amount of time at an overnight camp with their electronics and use them as usual, it was found that the group that did not have electronics significantly improved their social skills more than the group who kept their electronics. Just as playing an instrument takes practice, so do social skills. And teens today are not practicing their in-person social skills as much as previous generations did. So in terms of the vicious cycle, if a kid has some social difficulties, a trap that parents can fall into is that they become overly permissive with screen privileges, which then sets the stage for this vicious cycle by promoting dependency on the screen. Psychologically, the child becomes dependent on the screen for stimulation or a feeling of connection, or maybe even just to escape a boring, unfulfilling, or even painful life. Eventually, the thought of being without the device may cause the child to feel highly anxious. As social support decreases, depression worsens. Studies suggest that children or teens with social anxiety are at higher risk for depression. Kids who experience social anxiety or who are socially incompetent are at particularly high risk for developing dependence on electronic media. the more the child hides behind a screen, the more socially awkward he or she becomes, creating a self-perpetuating cycle. Nowadays, socially awkward or socially anxious kids aren't forced to practice their face-to-face or eye-to-eye interactions because they can have some of their social needs met online. And research is indicating that relationship problems are starting to show up at home as well, as the more time a child spends on the internet or spends online, the less healthy the parent-child relationship becomes. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is missing opportunities to develop social skills. So the reason why social skills deficits are increasing really is straightforward. Teens are spending less time interacting face-to-face with others, and thus they're not forced to practice their social skills and hone those skills of being able to read another person's expressions and body language. Even like texting and email is, because it's available 24/7, we may have some teens who are purposely avoiding in-person interaction because it's less anxiety provoking to communicate with someone through a screen. I mean, for instance, it's much easier to be rejected in the comfort of your own home behind a screen than it is to be rejected by someone in person. So, and the ability to learn how to connect with others is also being lost. Kids are missing the opportunity to truly connect with another person in person without the distraction and the noise of the internet buzzing around them constantly. And even when we see teens together, oftentimes they're together, but not truly together. It's not uncommon to see a group of teens in public together, but they're all standing there on their phones. And it's sad because it seems like they're showing a preference for their phones versus connecting to the person who's right in front of them, which is really what our brains and we as human beings are meant to do. So just a quick recap, I reviewed the following 3 reasons for the social skills deficits that we're seeing in our kids. 1 is decreased in-person interaction, 2 is the vicious cycle, and 3 is missing opportunities to develop social skills. So now I'm going to move on to the what to do about it section. This section covers major concepts for improving your child's social skills. It's not meant to be prescriptive, but it is meant to give you some guidance in terms of your own personal strategies. I'm going to review the following 3 ways to improve your child's social skills. 1 is you as parents modeling by decreasing screen time as a household. 2 is scheduling phone-free socializing, and 3 is increasing in-person social time. So the first thing I want to talk about is decreasing screen time as a household. If you as a parent are asking your child or telling them that they need to decrease their screen time, but then you're sitting there on your smartphone constantly, you're sending the message of do as I say, but not as I do, which really doesn't get you closer to your goal. The message gets weakened if you're not making the same lifestyle changes that you're asking your child to make. So the first thing I recommend is just as a household making an effort to decrease your screen time so that you're showing your child that you're taking this information seriously too, and that you're working on this together. The next thing I'm going to talk about is scheduling phone-free socializing. So this could be getting your kids involved in social activities where they just really can't have their phone nearby. This could be things like after-school sports or recreational sports, martial arts, music or art clubs, any kind of activity where they're around their peers and they're engaged in some type of activity where they can't have their phones nearby. In terms of socializing at home, what I would encourage you to do is have a device basket in your house where you can put your phones during specified times, like if your child's having a friend over or during meal times. And now I've realized that some of these suggestions are totally going against the grain in terms of how teens are living their lives now. But the reason for this is that, we're seeing this massive increase in mental health disorders. We're seeing this, deficits in social skills, so we're not going in the right direction. So we have to change things up a bit, right? So I do encourage you to talk to your child and educate them about what you're learning in this course so that they understand the reason why you're putting some of these strategies in place. So they understand why you're encouraging them to not have their phone around when they're socializing with their peers, okay? And I also encourage you to talk to your child's friends' parents, tell them about what you're learning so that they have an understanding of how their child's smartphone could be interfering with their ability to develop their social skills. And, the more parents that you can get to understand this information, the easier it'll be on your child, because other children will be encouraged to have this phone-free socializing time. The last thing I'm going to talk about is increasing in-person social time. So the more you can get your child offline and interacting with others in person, the more they're going to start to develop their social skills and learn the nuances of reading nonverbal body language and sensing how another person's feeling so that they can respond accordingly. And the thing is that these skills really they're not going to go anywhere. If anything, when we're looking at trends of the types of skills that are going to be important as our teens are entering the workforce, we're seeing things like empathy and the ability to connect with others. So, when it comes to social skill development, it's one of those things that you really can't learn from reading a book or reading an article. It's one of those things that you have to experience in order to learn how to develop these skills and how to manage yourself in social situations. So, I do this all the time in my clinical practice when I have teens who are struggling socially. We'll do some role plays in terms of social situations to help the teen gain some practice in terms of how to manage themselves socially. And even though we practice in session, the rubber really doesn't meet the road until they go out in their lives and they interact with people in person. It's the only way to truly develop and hone these skills of being able to manage yourself in social situations. So just a quick recap, I reviewed the following 3 ways of improving social skills. One is for you as parents to model by decreasing screen time as a household. 2 is scheduling phone-free socializing. And 3 is increasing in-person social time. So that is the module on social skills deficits. I hope that you're finding this information beneficial. I congratulate you on your commitment to learning this information. Until next time, this is Dr. B signing off.